everybody. This is the first in a series of short tutorials where I want to introduce you to the Reaper digital audio workstation application that would be quite useful to not only to edit audio, but as we progress through the tutorials, I'll show some basic video processor tools that may help you do some video editing and rendering in case you are not very familiar with Premiere or other video editing programs, or you have a project that has more sound editing than video editing, and maybe it could be useful for you to optimize your workflow and do everything in Reaper. Reaper is not freeware, but the free version that you can download from the internet is not limited, so you can use all functions of the application. And if you decide to purchase the license, it's not very expensive. So as you can see, I have here the keyboard viewer in Mac so that you can see what I'm doing on the keyboard as I'm going to use some shortcuts. Shortcuts, of course, are just a preference, but I strongly suggest it for the sake of time efficiency. This first tutorial will deal with a few concepts. One of them is hierarchy, and for that I will show you I'm working on the Mac operating system, but this will be the same in PC, of course, and I have just an empty folder here to show you how this encapsulation concept is useful for our file system, and it will also be useful to understand how to work within the digital audio workstation to encapsulate by theme what our content is, be it video or audio. So for example, what we're going to do here is we're going to have a session that will have some audio and we'll have some video. So this is called a tutorial. Sorry, this is a Reaper tutorial. And this is going to be our overall project. Within the Reaper tutorial, we're going to have some materials that we're going to edit. And within those materials, we're going to have audio and we're going to have video. Then what else do we need? We're going to be editing, of course, these materials. So I'm going to make an edit folder, and within that edit folder, I'm going to save my Reaper session. Let's go back to our workflow and our hierarchy. Here, we're going to save our session as Reaper tutorial 1 within the edit folder here. So as I save my project, I will be prompted for some options that I will hope to explore in future tutorials that are actually quite useful. These are particularly useful for backing up material in the case of copy all media into project directory. And then it will also allow you to convert the media to a specific format, etc. So this is actually rather useful, but for the moment, let's just say that we're gonna do save, Command S or Control S in Windows, and I'm gonna save this to our edit folder here, call this Reaper tutorial 1. It's saved, there, here it is. This is a useful feature in Mac as well. For those who don't know it, you can hit Command, as you can see on the keyboard, and when you click on the bar here, it will show the actual route to your project. Let's see what this interface looks like. I'm not gonna go through all the features, but we have a transport section that shows us the status, if we're playing or we're stopped, and we can also loop. Our playback is looping within the time selection. Some useful windows that you will find here. One of them that's very useful, I'm going to always be dragging here from the view menu, the Media Explorer. This will show us the media on our machine. And we can also save some favorites here if in case we have a sound library or a repository within our hard drive or in an external drive we want to access. We're gonna have also a project media effects bay that I will also like to go more in detail later on when we have a more complex session. But as you can see, all your media items here. Most importantly, the path, so that we can immediately know whether these files are in our session or not. And I will show later on how to copy or move them to our session if needed. We have also a media item properties menu that you can access all the properties of the selected item. We're gonna go a little bit deeper into this when I add some items to this session. When you're gonna be working with video, you're gonna need to enable this video window to be able to monitor your image. Of course, the mixer is by default shown, but keep in mind that you can very easily with this shortcut Command-M or Control-M in Windows, you can very easily hide it. So if I go Command-M, I'll get more space in the editing part of my user interface here. So we saved our project in this Reaper tutorial 1. What are the settings of this project? So that's kind of important to keep in mind. And this is something that you may need to do only once. So when you go to project settings here on the file menu and you open the window, you get your project settings window. In this case, the project sample rate is linked to the last settings you've used. In my case, I was working with a music project, and therefore sample rate here is 44,100. But we're gonna change this to 48 kilohertz, which is the ideal sample rate for video. Because this is more of an audiovisual based series of tutorials, I will keep this then in 48 kilohertz. I will also make sure that our video project settings are on 25. This is PAL format, which is the format I'm using in the region I'm working on, and Full HD 1920 to 1080. That's our project video size settings. This is the video item visibility. So this is how we hierarchically organize the videos, and this will have to do with how the video processor works. And I'm going to cover it a little bit more in depth when we go to the video tutorial. I would recommend to check that this is always selected, resize video sources to preferred video size, and resize the output to preferred video size, and use high quality filtering when resizing, and preserve the aspect ratio when resizing. There are, as you can see, many more features that can be set on the project settings, including some media preferences. I would suggest everybody uses at least this format for audio, which is 24 bits of bit depth and WAV as a file format. So for the moment, I'm done with these settings. And what I'm going to do is save this as default project settings. This means that every time I create a new project, let's do that right now. So if I do now, say yes here, save this project, and I'm going to create a new project. And if I go to my project settings here, you'll see that the settings are exactly the same ones that I've used for our tutorial 1 project, which is right here. There's a recent projects option here under the file menu. So you can see the last projects that you've worked on. And now we're back, as you see in the title bar, on our project. We're gonna go very quickly through some of the preferences, not all of them. You can deeply customize your settings, and as I strongly suggest that you do that. But for now, I would just give you some really basic preferences that are useful to make sure that you won't run into trouble. This paths settings, I would argue, if you're going to be working on your own computer, this could be useful to set up. Browse to a particular folder to save what Reaper calls repeats files. These are waveform files. That's the visual representation of the audio on your timeline. And Reaper will create one of these repeat files every time you drop an audio in your timeline. So by default, Reaper will create this file on the same folder where the audio is located. So if you want to avoid that and have all these peak files in one particular folder, this is the place to go. Reaper preferences, paths, and here you can set up a default folder where you can every now and then go and delete all these files. If you want to reopen an old project, these big files will be recreated when trying to restore an older session. So when I see my device Reaper preferences window, I see that the sample rate is still set to 44/100, and that is because my request sample rate option here is unselected. So I'm going to change this to 48 kilohertz, which is the value that I'm using in the project, and on the system I will apply this change. So I want to show you one more quite important setting you may want to look into, and that is the horizontal zoom center. In my case, it's set to mouse cursor, which means that the application will zoom in using the position on the x-axis relative to my mouse cursor. Of course, this is just a personal preference, and you can explore the other options here for our horizontal zoom center and see which of them is more comfortable for you to work with. And the last feature that is slightly advanced but will definitely help our workflow is this menu of mouse modifiers. By default, you will find it here in track, but as you can see, you can use your mouse to control a wide range of parameters. And in this case, I want to go to media item, and this is a feature in Pro Tools that I missed enormously in Reaper, and is the capacity to move a clip vertically, locking its position in the x-axis in our timeline. I'll show you in the coming video why this is so useful. One more thing that I want to show you is play and pause in Reaper, because as you see, I have my edit cursor here that moves when I click different parts of my edit area, and if I hit play, it will start from that position every time. But let's say that I want to play continuously. When I hit stop, I would like it to pause instead of full stop and then restart from my starting position. So to change that, you need to change your shortcut key. That's really easy. You can hit start with your spacebar, and then when you hit enter instead of spacebar, as you can see, it moves your edit cursor to your pause, and now your edit cursor moves along with your playback. So this way you assure that you're pausing instead of stopping. Use the spacebar for stop and use enter for pause. This will be it for this tutorial. I'm wanting to go through these few settings that I thought were quite important. On the next tutorial, we're going to be talking about track features and show you some basic editing features in Reaper. Thank you.